Hi, it's my privilege to be able to introduce what's going to be taking place this week. And the theme that we're going to be taking a look at is our identity. Who am I? One of the biggest questions that everybody asks in their life, but I think is especially being asked by your generation. And that is, who am I really? And am I unique? Am I really somebody who really is truly an individual in this world? And so many times too, we can ask ourselves, what is my identity? I mean, what is it really? Now you have the blessing of having an identity that comes with a rich history from your Cree culture. You have a rich history with the land, you have a rich history with your ancestry, you have an identity that is really unbelievably beautiful and unique. But you also have an identity as an individual. And that is the thing that I want to be able to share with you a little bit about here right now, and that we're going to be taking a look at throughout this series. And who are you as an individual? Now, I'm going to tell you different ways that you often come to define yourself and to be able to look at yourself and appreciate who you are as individuals. We can get it from our family. We can look at the way that they interact with us, the way that they talk to us, the way that we feel that we fit into the family order. We can look at where we are in terms of brothers, sisters, cousins, nephews, aunts, uncles, grandparents, the whole bit. We can look at things that way. You can look at it in terms of your involvement in the community and that. Your involvement at school, your involvement in sports, your involvement in music, your involvement with different people, your involvement with your friends. And we can look at our identity that way and even begin to try and figure out, who am I? You know, sometimes though, the greatest place that we take a look at and that defines who we are and defines our identity, and that is, who loves me? Who loves me? And we get so much out of our identity by the fact of who loves me and how do they love me? And how do I get them to keep loving me? Or how do I get somebody to love me? And we can begin to identify ourselves through that need. See, one of the most amazing things about you and about me, and that is that the Creator made us in such a way that we want to be loved, we desire to be loved, we need to be loved, and in turn though, we want to love others. And that's a neat part of every single one of us in terms of our identity. But here's something else I want you to be able to appreciate about your identity. And that is that the scriptures tell me and tell us that God made each one of us unique. That there's no one else like you in all the universe. And that there are no angels that look like you. There's nobody else that's been born before you that ever is identical to you. There's no one who will come after who will be identical to you. God made you unique. As a matter of fact, it tells us in His Word that He says, not only did I form you the way that you are, so that you are perfectly designed to be able to live the story that I want to give you, but I want you to be able to know something. That story is so precious to God, He says, I wrote down every moment of that story in my book before even one of those moments came to be. But what does that mean? And how do we actually connect with the heart of God in being able to understand who we are at that type of level that makes me excited about the person that I am and the story then that I get to live? I want to share with you briefly a story about a guy named David from the Bible. Now, you probably know David best from the fact that this was the same David that took on a big guy named Goliath, and he won. All right, you can look and read that story for yourself and find out more about it. But David is best known for his battle with Goliath when he was just a boy. But I want to take you back even further before that in the story. It tells us that David was one of 7 brothers. And the amazing thing about David is that not only did he have all these older brothers in his life, but he was considered basically what we would call the runt of the family. And the runt means the person who's born, but the honest truth is, we don't think they have much possibility. We don't think they have very much potential. The honest truth is, we're taking a look at them, and we've already made a judgment about their identity. And that is, the judgment is, you know, the truth is, this person doesn't have much of a story. They don't have much to be able to make something unbelievable happen with their life. That's how his whole family looked at David. As a result, David's given a job of taking care of the sheep, which meant that he spent long periods of time not even living at home. He'd be out in the fields, staying overnight, staying with the sheep all the time, and it was basically considered a responsibility that the truth is, you gave it to somebody that you really weren't sure what else you could get them to do. One time, there's a huge party, a huge celebration going on at David's house, and that with his family. A prophet has arrived in town by the name of Samuel, and he says, I'm going to be celebrating with you guys tonight. Now Samuel's been sent there by God because he's been sent specifically with this family to be able to say that one of these sons of this guy is going to be the next king of Israel. So he gets together with the dad Jesse. Jesse lines up his 6 sons. Samuel starts going through each one of them, looking at them, and he's impressed with these guys as he sees them, thinking, oh, these guys are built like kings. They look like kings. They identify as kings. They were everything you thought a king should be. But God kept saying, no, 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 no. And his reason for it was he said, you look at the outside of the way that identifies somebody. I look at the inside, at who they are and how I've made them. And I've rejected every single one of them as a potential for king. Samuel gets to the end of the list of these guys, and he's sort of feeling awkward here right now because he's thinking, is this all the sons you got? Because God told me one of your sons is supposed to be the next king, but the truth is, it's not one of them. And so he asks Jesse, do you have any more sons? And Jesse suddenly feels the awkwardness of the moment. Well, yeah, there's the youngest. But the truth is, he's out taking care of the sheep because honestly, that's all he can do. And Samuel says, we're not going to start the party until he gets here. Go get him. I have no idea how long that would have taken. But they go, they get David, they bring David back, and the Lord immediately says to Samuel, that's the next king of Israel. Where does your identity come from? Does it come from those who are closest to you? Because sometimes even our family and our family members can be looking at our story and judging it all wrong, looking at who we really are and really not getting it. Does it come from the people around you? Even the people around David, outside of his family, never looked at him as a potential king. David had an unbelievable strength, and he writes about this later. And that is that he says, God, at the times when I was taking care of my sheep, I would look at the heavens at night and I would realize to myself, this declares who God is. And I would know, God, that just like you made the stars up there, you made me, and I'm unique. And God, I'm so thankful that you made me to be who I am. David never took his identity from the rejection by his family, his parents, or his brothers, or by the community. David took his identity about who he really is from the heart of God. He understood that God was not only out there and more powerful than anything he could imagine, but God absolutely loved him as well. Oh, and by the way, that's what gave David the strength the day he went ahead and faced Goliath. Everybody else was looking at him and saying, you can't do this. It's not your story. It's not your identity to be a giant killer. But David wasn't taking his identity from anybody else, but only from God. I hope that what we're going to be doing here over this week at camp with you is going to give you a deep appreciation for not only how God sees your story so different than anybody else, but God wants to be involved in that story for it to become something bigger and better than you ever thought it could be, as well as everybody else. And it's motivated by his love for you, a love that he says, let this love define you, because you are more precious and you have greater potential and greater promise to be able to live a story that's phenomenal, because God in his love through Jesus wants to be there with you every moment of the way. Looking forward to sharing this week with you. Blessings.